Can you try to have a vaginal birth after 2 C-sections? It is possible. I'll give you 3 tips to maximize your chance of a vaginal birth after 2 C-sections coming up. Dr. Wes Davis with you here today. On this channel, I give you weekly videos that contain the best evidence-based information that I can find to help you maximize the chances of the best possible outcome for you and your baby. So if you're new here, please consider subscribing. I had lots of great feedback in my original VBAC video, but one question that kept coming up in the comments is, can you try for a VBAC after 2 previous C-sections? The answer is yes, you can, but there's 3 tips you need to know. Tip number 1, know your chances of success. There's a link to a website that runs a calculator that will actually calculate your chances of success. That model has now been validated as being predictive for patients who've had 2 prior C-sections as well. So you can run the same numbers and find out your chance of success after 2 C-sections just like you can after 1. Tip number 2, know that the risk for trying for a vaginal birth after 2 C-sections is a little higher than after 1. Now, we usually quote that rate as about 1% if you've had 1 previous low transverse C-section. There's data out there that shows that the risk is about double that if you've had 2 C-sections. You should consider that 2 or so % chance risk of uterine rupture when you're thinking about your chances of success as calculated by the model I provided. I would encourage anyone to consider a trial of labor after C-section if the chance of success based on that model was at least 60%. If it's less than that, the risks are higher if you have a failed trial of labor. The complications will be higher if you have to have a C-section as opposed to having just had a scheduled repeat C-section. Tip number 3, don't be induced. It turns out the risk of complications is higher if you're induced as opposed to having spontaneous labor. Also, it turns out your chance of success is a little bit lower if you're being induced, and that's especially true if you've never successfully had a vaginal birth. In an ideal world, labor starts spontaneously. Now, the chance of success does go down a little bit if your labor starts after your due date as opposed to before your due date. It doesn't mean you can't try. Just know that the chance of success does go down a little bit. On that same webpage that I mentioned before, you can calculate your chance of success. There's a link at the bottom of that page that will take you to another calculator which will estimate your chance of success if labor has already started. If you haven't checked out my original VBAC video, be sure to do so. It goes into a lot more detail on this subject. I hope this video answers your questions about trial of labor after 2 previous C-sections. If you have questions, please put them in the comments, and please consider subscribing. Thanks for watching, and have a great day.